Hello and welcome to our watercolor journey. Today we're going to do a step-by-step tutorial using negative painting and the bokeh effect to create these beautiful raindrops. So let's start with the brushes. It's the Art Secret Mop number 10, Silver Black Velvet number 12, Silver Black Velvet number 8, Winsor & Newton Series 7 number 0, and the Hwahong stencil brush. For the circles, we used Aureolin, Iso Yellow Deep, Winsor Orange, Alizarin Crimson, and Cobalt Blue. You can use any of the reds and yellows to make your own oranges, and the blue and yellow for the touch of green that you will need. In the background, we used Cobalt Blue, Phthalo Blue Red shade, Prussian Blue, Indigo, Dioxazine Violet, and Tundra Rose. But again, you can use any kind of blue you want and any kind of purple. It's just to create interest. For the raindrops, Prussian Blue, Indigo, and Iso Yellow Deep. Add masking fluid to your paper at random. Just drop it in to resemble all the little droplets. When you make the circles, try to erase the circles a little bit so that it's not so dark. It's very hard to erase the pencil marks after you have painted. Heinrich used a number 8 Silver Black Velvet and he wet the circles at the top first. Then he added the yellows, different shades, different strengths of pigment to create all the different layers and kinds of circles that he has there. The silver brushes hold quite a lot of moisture and a lot of paint, so he decided not to wet the rest of the circles, as there is more than enough moisture on the brush to keep painting for quite a while. So he didn't wet those, he just painted wet on dry. Vary between the yellows so that you have a little bit of variety in the little balls that you paint. You can create your own different oranges by just using yellow and red, and it's a good idea to kind of pre-mix it if you have to mix your own oranges, so that you don't have to struggle with the different hues and the different pigment strengths that you want to use. Add a little bit of shadow to each of the little balls. Let them dry naturally. It is always better to let them dry naturally and not use a blow dryer. A blow dryer is faster, but it can push the paint around and it will go where you don't want it to be. So now we're going to do negative painting, and this is where the fun begins. He's using an Art Secret mop, and this has got a very fine point, so it's very easy to go into those little nooks and crannies and get the place wet properly. As you can see, he's wetting around the circles first. The reason is that if you do negative painting and you start by wetting the big parts of your paper, it will be dry before you have done all the little finicky pieces in between. So it's better to start with the areas where you are going to actually do the negative painting. Wet that first and then go to the rest of your paper, and make sure that it is wet thoroughly. Right, now we're going to start with the background, and the first one he's doing is Cobalt Blue. random strokes anywhere on your paper, and again you can use any kinds of blues you want to. You can make it stronger, you can make it weaker. Remember, it dries back quite faintly, and if you want it to pop, it's better to use a little bit of stronger pigment. So this one that he's using now is Prussian Blue. Because the circles are dry, the paint doesn't seep into them. And because he made sure to wet around them, the paint stays. It doesn't run into the circles. Don't put all the blues in the same place. As you can see, it's in different places on your background. Next up is the Phthalo Blue, and this one is the red shade. A beautiful, beautiful bright color. The silver brush is also very handy because it also makes a very fine point. And as you can see, he's constantly turning the brush to keep the fine point so that you can get into all those little spaces. Next up is Indigo. Such a gorgeous color. And it does look quite stark on the paper now, but remember, it will dull when it dries. If you vary the position of the brush, you can make broader and narrower strokes, which also creates a variety in the background. Nice strong pigment of the indigo. He's creating a kind of a halo effect with the brush strokes. And of course, it's okay to turn the paper around because sometimes you get a better perspective when you turn it around. And now he's moving in at the top with Dioxazine Violet and Tundra Rose. If you don't have Dioxazine or Tundra, you can use red and blue to make a nice, beautiful purple. So experiment with the colors, mix them, see what you can get from them. Let them do their magic. Again, let your painting dry naturally. This is definitely not the time to use a blow dryer. Right, now you're going to use a rubber cement eraser or even a tissue or your finger to get rid of all the masking fluid. As you can see, the droplets are really very random, so you are going to use those random shapes to create your droplets. But first, let's use the stencil and create the bouquet effect. So what you do is you wet the stencil brush, rub in circles on the space where you want to remove the paint, and then dab it out. Sometimes you will press harder and sometimes you will not press so hard, and that would give you different depths of color. Let your circles overlap because that would make them more natural. You can also use a Q-tip, but I found that it's not really that effective. Right, now your stencil work is done and your painting is nice and dry. It is time to add the final shadows to the light. Add shadows just to give definition, not too much. And let it dry again. Right, so now you are going to use the finest brush that you can get. And you are literally going to make a little yellow dot in every one of the drops. This is going to take a while, but just like with the stenciling, it can be very therapeutic to do this. The reason why there's a little yellow dot in every drop is because each drop reflects the yellow light. Then you are going to add shadows with the Prussian Blue and the Indigo. A very thin line at the top of the little droplet or on the sides, depending on where your light comes from. When you paint the droplets, make a very fine line with the blue because that creates the shadow. Now you have the yellow dot for the reflection and the blue for the shadows, so leave an open space, a white space, for the transparency of the droplet. And that is our final painting. Thank you so very much for joining us, and we hope to see you very, very soon again on our watercolor journey. Happy painting!